Welcome back to Making Money Matter, ladies and gentlemen. Boy, have I got some excitement for you today because I'm actually sitting in person with the wonderful Lynette Zhang. Some of you might remember Lynette. She spoke as a keynote speaker at the Australian Gold Conference, and she was also one of my very first guests on the Making Money Matter YouTube channel. Lynette is the founder of Zhang Enterprises. What do? They are ambassadors for sound money and community, which is so important because all of you know, gold is money, so is silver, everything else is credit. So Lynette, so good to see you in person.
Oh,
Love
absolutely.
This.
I'm so happy to be here, and you look fabulous.
Oh,
so,
bless you.
You know, so many changes have happened since you invited me to the Gold Conference. So, yeah, lots to talk about.
Yeah, well, let's start with that. We've had an election in the US. Trump's in, tariffs are in, change is in. When you say so much has changed, one of the things that I talk about often, I mean, this is the Making Money Matter channel, so it's not necessarily just about gold and silver.
Right.
It's about helping people to understand how to protect their purchasing power. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, this is what we're going to be talking a lot about today. So what's changed?
Well, for me personally, because that's what really, I mean, yes, lots and lots of things have changed. But when I was doing your conference last year, really what I saw was how important it is to take this message globally.
Yeah.
And, you know, if we don't come together as a global community and make money matter, but bring sound money back into the global system, then what are we looking for? We're looking for a full surveillance economy where we lose all choices, and frankly, most people lose all opportunities. So I think that there is not a more important time in history for us to come together wherever we are in the world and say no to what the central bankers have in mind for us and convert our fiat, the government debt-based garbage that we all know is losing value over time.
They don't know. We know. They don't know.
But they're experiencing the inflation, right?
They are, yep.
And that is, well, you don't have to take anybody's word for it. That's what shows you that it's losing value.
Okay.
I was talking to, you know, my cohorts that are here with me, and they're young 30-year-olds, and we were talking about real estate as a great example, right?
I love real estate.
There you go.
Thank you, Graham Home.
So, and I don't quite remember, but what did you say an average price of a house that you guys were looking at? It was like
upwards of 700,000.
700,000 in US dollars.
Oh, here it's about 1.5, 2 mil.
Okay. Well, there are a lot of people that can't afford that.
Sure.
But back in 1978, that's when I bought my first home. And it was a starter home, but it was about 1,800 square feet, about 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a little living room, a little kitchen, little dining room, etc. And I paid $59,000 for it.
Right.
And my interest was, I think, 12%, 12 or 14%.
Yeah, okay.
So it's home affordability. And what they were talking about, well, if interest rates get dropped down again, is that going to make homes more affordable? Well, I don't think so, because it'll just inspire more people to borrow and spend. But that house today would probably be, I don't know, maybe somewhere around $400,000, maybe $500,000.
Sure.
Is it that the house is worth that much more? It's exactly the same house.
Yeah.
Or is it that the dollar is worth that much less? That's really what it is.
Yeah, and I guess that's what people need to understand, but why don't they?
Well, because it's not taught in school, is it?
That's true, yeah.
I lift weights every week, and I was talking to my trainer. Now, my trainer is an attorney turned gym owner trainer, so he's a very bright guy. And his minor was in history.
Love it.
And he's always studying, he's always reading. And we were having a conversation, especially once, you know, President Trump came in, and he made a comment about how Nixon took the gold, closed the gold window in the 70s, and so, Republicans, right? And I said, well, President Johnson, who was a Democrat in the 60s, took silver out of our coinage.
Absolutely.
But not only did he do that, he openly announced that anybody that attempts to hoard it, they would crash the market. And we had subsequently an example of that. So why don't people know that? Because governments and central banks don't want people to know that. It's our job to help people see that inflation, that's not a monetary phenomenon. It is a fiat money phenomenon.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so it's a fiat issue.
Exactly.
And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, fiat just means paper money. I don't know, what does fiat stand
Government.
for?
Oh, that actually is by decree.
By decree.
Right?
Okay.
So it is a government-based money. The government says, boy, these pieces of paper or these digits are money.
Right.
Well, so they've legalized it.
Right.
Right. Intentionally, they built inflation into it there were a number of reasons, but two key reasons. Number one, governments wanted to tax you more and spend more.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Oh, God.
But if they had to go to Congress and make it known, then the public might not agree.
Okay.
However, has anybody heard of the inflation tax?
Yeah, it's a very good point.
Right?
I've heard of it and I know about it. I call shrinkflation as well, packages same size, but the stuff inside is a lot less. So I call that shrinkflation. But yeah,
It's
the
the same
inflation
thing.
tax, yeah.
Exactly. Corporations wanted to pay people less. But hey, if you're used to getting $10, you're not likely to accept 5. However, if they can make that $10 spend like 5, then they got what they wanted. And have we not seen that huge discrepancy between wealth and income inequality around the world?
Yeah, globally. Yep.
Fiat money, government debt-based money, chooses winners and losers.
Who are the winners?
Who are the winners?
Yeah, let's go into it.
Okay.
Corporations?
The corporations, because whoever, if you think of it like a spoke of a wheel, right? And the central bank that creates the money is in the middle. Whoever is closest to those central banks get that money first. When it has the highest level of purchasing power.
Right.
That's actually corporations. That's not even governments. Governments are next in that wheel. And have you heard of the trickle-down theory?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so the theory is that you give the wealth to the people at the top and they spend it and it trickles down to the normal public.
The everyday,
But what is that level of purchasing power by the time it gets to you? It's a lot lower than when it first came out.
Yeah, can we because we were talking about taxes.
Yes. Let's talk about that.
The Federal Reserve was set up in 1913. Am I correct? Because my history isn't as strong as yours. Were there taxes prior to the Federal Reserve being set up?
No.
There were no taxes?
No income taxes.
So the Federal Reserve gets
no
set up.
IRS.
No IRS. No
Right.
IRS. So talk to me about that because, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, you all know that I love a good book, and I want you all to go out and read the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Absolutely.
Written by Ed J. Griffin. The Creature from Jekyll Island. You will understand how the Federal Reserve was set up, why it was set up, and its impact on you. And it was written away. He's an amazing man. Stop watching Netflix. Get educated. So let's talk.
It's critical.
Let's talk taxes. So why has this happened? Because, Lynette, I love your understanding of what's going on. I want to talk how it started, but then I want to talk what can my beautiful community do about it? So
absolutely.
Why did they bring the taxes in the first place?
Those two, it's not just the taxes.
Right.
Because what people really need to understand, okay, you take on debt.
Yes.
Then you have to pay interest on that debt.
Yep.
There's only, 1% of the people in the world, bankers, et cetera, that accumulate, that get to charge interest, but everybody else has to pay that interest, right? When you have to pay that interest, then you have less money in your principal, right? So it costs you more. Inflation was built into the system as an almost invisible form of taxation and a way to transfer wealth to those corporations.
Okay.
Okay? And if you look at charts and graphs, and I love my charts and graphs.
You do, yeah, you do.
I know,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And you look at the productivity. So as technology evolved and manufacturing became easier, what have you, up until was really in the early 80s when this shifted, but the shift really started in 1971.
Yeah.
When Nixon,
Took us off.
they say,
Temporarily.
temporarily took us off the gold standard, right?
It's a long temporarily.
Right? And they say close the gold window, which doesn't seem so bad, really. I mean, he said that, hey, as long as you buy American products, you're not going to feel the impact of inflation, which was not true, and nor was it temporary.
Yeah.
Right? But what he really did in that moment was he handed over the control of inflation to the central banks. And how do they do that? With interest rates, right? Yeah. So if they want to create inflation, what do? They drop those interest rates down. More people borrow and spend. That drives the prices of the real estate up. I mean, what were they even before the pandemic? How much have those prices gone up since they went to, boom, ZIRP, zero interest rate policy, which was actually back to 2009, right?
Yeah.
That was about generating inflation. Because when a stock market implodes, when a real estate market implodes, when any of those markets implodes, that's deflationary.
Of course.
Prices going down. Well, this is simple. There's only one way, not two, not five, one way to fight deflation, and that's with inflation.
Yeah.
Now, if they want to slow that inflation down, what we've seen on a global basis, what do? They raise interest rates. So fewer people borrow and spend. Now,
But they're
here's
not-
the question.
Okay, yeah.
I'm sorry, you
No,
can
go
ask
ahead.
it. But the question is, but wait a minute. They raise the interest rates, and yet we still see all these mergers and acquisitions and the stock market's making new highs and property prices still continuing to go up and blah, blah,
The
blah.
party's still going.
The party's still, why? Because of all of the new money that they created
Yeah.
since 2008. And here's the scary part. This is the first time that they're dropping rates, the Federal Reserve anyway, is dropping interest rates into an already easy money environment.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about a new president in the US, and it wouldn't have mattered who got in. It could have been Harris, it could have been Trump. It doesn't matter because they don't understand money anyway.
Right.
They're all talking about spending more and more and more.
100%.
Why'd they take us off the gold standard?
Because they can print.
Exactly. Gold creates fiscal responsibility.
Correct. Yeah.
And creates those limitations.
Correct.
And Kerry, what I'm telling you right now is so critically important
Okay.
that I really want everybody to hear this, okay? When we in the US and anywhere in the world, when you could walk into a bank with a piece of paper, a government bill, it was really a gold certificate.
Yep.
You could walk out of the bank with a gold coin.
Correct. Yep.
And that would then create more restrictions around what those governments could do, how much debt they could grow, what they could spend. They took that power away from the people in 33. But other governments still had that power. We have to take our power back. When Nixon closed the gold window, he took that power away from foreign governments. And most people don't know this, and I know a lot of people in the US, I would say probably 99.999% of the people don't know this, but there was a major run on the US dollar in the 60s.
Oh, okay.
Kind of remember President de Gaulle in
Yeah,
France, and he
yeah, yeah.
came out and he
Oh,
said,
that's right. Wanted
Right?
His, yeah, wanted his,
but who knows about that?
yeah.
Just people that study history.
Yeah.
And he said, this is garbage.
Yeah.
The US gets to repay us in debt that they create.
Correct. Yeah, and he wanted his gold back.
Exactly. That's what happened, and that's why I'm saying it wasn't just France that took their gold back. It was very many countries that took their gold back. So much so that it was pretty close to the same level, maybe even a little bit lower than prior to the confiscation in 33, and I'm referring to the amount of gold that we had inside of the system. So had Nixon not done that, the U.S. would probably have absolutely zero gold, and it's never been audited.
Nope.
So who knows?
Yeah, who knows whether they got it or not. But listen, there is so much to get through. There is so much misunderstanding out there. You and I both know that gold is money and silver, precious metals.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
the
you
physical
can't,
hard
you can't
metal.
print it. We also know that you've got a president-elect coming in who's going to raise tariffs and increase printing. We know that.
Right.
My question to you is, aren't we already in a digital system where most people can't opt out and don't even understand how to opt out? I speak to a lot of people, Annette, as you know.
Right.
And they say to me, but gold is so expensive. Now, there's two questions here. The first one is...
I'm so glad you asked that. Go ahead.
The first one is, aren't we already in a system where we've lost control? You said you want the global community to understand that we need to take back control. Isn't it almost too late for that? I mean, listen, we all know that that's the best and the worst thing that's ever happened to us because they tap-a-roo and they have no idea of where their spending is going from. So the question is, aren't we already in the matrix?
Well, the answer is yes and no. I do not think it's too late. I don't think it is at all. And you know, my trip last year to Australia changed my life. I'm getting goosebumps. It changed my life because it was here that I realized that what I really needed to start talking about more was community.
Yeah.
Local community, because everybody needs to have security in food, water, energy, security itself, barterability, wealth preservation, and shelter.
Yeah.
And the community, frankly, this is something I've personally been working on since 2008 because I'm very clear that's when the system really died, right? And I believe my research because I know how deeply I dig, and I've been studying this on some level my entire life.
Yeah.
Right? So that's when I started becoming more, I became a prepper then. I wasn't a prepper before that. Do I look like a farmer? I mean,
You do.
good thing because I am now. So local communities people can come together and then they can provide that security in all those areas because everybody can bring in a different talent and and there's power
to
and
the tribe.
strength. Exactly.
Yeah, go back to the tribe.
Strength in numbers.
Yep.
But on a global basis, and that's why Zhang Enterprises, we are about sound money and community on a global basis.
Okay.
Because all we have to do, it's really very simple. All we have to do is convert this fiat garbage that we know through inflation. That's how you know it. If something costs you more, is it because it's worth that much more or the currency is worth that much less?
Devaluation of the currency, absolutely.
Exactly, right?
Yep.
So all we have to do is buy gold and silver.
And continue. Okay. So
That's all you have to do.
Okay, so that takes
How
me back to
easy.
my previous question, which is, I often get asked this by people, but gold has gone up so much, and my answer is always, against what? And they can't answer that. Now, my question to you is, people trust, which is really scary, they trust
Until
their
they
fiat. And by the way, they don't have it in their hand. It's a digit on a screen. And only this week, actually, my bank turned around and said, sent me a text message, we've suspended all your accounts. Bang, just like that. I'm like, what?
Oh.
Because they wanted to verify me. So you trust the digits on your phone. But what I'm saying is, how do we educate people that actually that gold and silver price, it's not expensive because your purchasing power is going to continue to go down. So how would you
Not
answer
only that,
Yep.
but Kerry, I think it is critically important, and this is not rocket science. If something is so complicated that you have to be an engineer to understand it, well, I'm not an engineer, right? I like things simple and clean. And here it is. You need to understand what the true fundamental value is of any asset or any instrument. So how do you do that? Because that's what we're talking about here. Well, there are a little bit of nuances in here, but what is the single most important function of gold or silver?
Protect your purchasing power.
Voila. See, you knew that.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I
then,
do, but so many others don't.
well, we're getting there.
Yeah, we are
We're
getting there.
getting
It's
there.
great.
And how do you do it? These conversations.
Absolutely.
Right? So how do you do it, though? Well, how is money created in the current debt-based system? They create debt, right? They can create as much debt as they want to and create more money, right? So you take all of the debt that's been created, and the last time I checked through the IFF, and this is on a global basis because it's a global issue, and there had been $313 trillion worth of debt that is now out there in the global population, and you use that as a proxy for how much money has been created, because that's how they create it, right?
Yep.
And that goes on the top line.
Okay.
There is a finite amount of gold and a finite amount of silver.
Yep.
But let's just stick with gold for the moment because gold is the primary currency metal. And what they do is on an annual basis, the U.S. Department of the Treasury, anybody can go online and have access to this, they tell you how much gold is above ground, how much gold is left in the ground on a global basis.
You learn something every day. Yep.
Yep, absolutely. All of this information is
It's
really
out there.
out there. They just don't want you to find out.
Okay.
All right? And here you go. I'm going to make it so simple. You divide all the debt by all the gold, and that tells you the true fundamental value of an ounce of gold.
Okay.
The last time I did that, and I'm speaking US dollars, the last time I did that, it was above $40,000 an ounce.
Wow. That puts Jim Rickard's $27,000 an ounce to shame.
Jim Rickards was talking about $27,000 an ounce to a 40% backing
He was
of the
too.
currency.
You're right.
So actually,
Yeah,
we're right in line with each other, aren't we?
Yeah, you are. You are.
Okay.
But again, going back to general population understanding it, a lot of people would look at both of us talking and say, but gold isn't money. You know, that my paycheck goes in and it's Australian dollars or it's American dollars or it's yuan or whatever. That's money. Gold isn't money. How would you explain that to them? Because that's what they've grown up. They're
Well,
born,
that's what they've, right. It's a re-education.
Yeah.
Right? It's a re-education. We have some ideas that I can't quite talk about just yet.
Oh, shame.
But you know, every time I come to Australia, so this is my second time, will not be my last time, I promise that.
I hope
especially since you already invited me again.
Yeah. Hopefully at the Australian Gold Conference next year. Shh, didn't say it yet. Yeah.
Well, I have a couple other things,
Maybe Gold Coast Gold the year after. Anyway, we'll work it out. She'll be back at some point. Anyway,
100% I will. I'm in love with this.
Let's go to that educational piece because it is so important because people are just used to, you and I call it fiat currency, but let's just say for the sake of this audience, Aussie dollars, US dollars.
Yeah,
that's what they're used to.
The same.
They don't see gold very often. In fact, I had some people for dinner on Monday night and I bought out my fake gold bar. I nearly bought that today, but it was 12 kilos. I went, no, it's too heavy to carry. And I showed them some real gold, some real silver. And their eyes just were like on, wow, look at the, they've never touched it, they've never seen it. A lot of people think it's complicated.
Is it?
But how do we uneducate to re-educate?
Well, Kerry, I think you just did it. You put it in their hands.
Right.
Right? There is something about it when you hold gold or silver, and think about for people that get married, right? Most of the wedding bands what metal
Gold.
are they made out of, right?
Yeah.
And what do you say? Good as gold. The goose that laid the golden egg. It's still in the back of our mind. It's just been taught away, and so it's re-education. As we've been here, because
Yep.
every time we come, every time we do something, we try and do it better and better. But I brought some silver coins. And we sat down. We had a meal at a restaurant.
Right.
And we took out. Adam has some footage of this, so he'll put a reel together.
Oh, great.
And I know in Australia you're not used to tipping, but Americans are very used to tipping, right?
Yeah, very much so.
And so I took out two $10 Aussie dollars, and I took out a 1 ounce
Oh, wow.
silver.
Oh, this is great.
And I said, you can have either one. We want you to have either one. Which one do you want? And guess what she took?
$10.
No, she did not.
Oh. Oh.
Voila. No, that's how you do it.
Did she take the silver?
Yes, she did. And
She was
thrilled
a
to
smart-
death.
Wow.
When I got my hair done,
Yeah.
I tipped him with a silver dollar. He's like, oh my God, and didn't you do that too, Adam, with someone? And the text back, oh my God, this is so fabulous. That's how you do it.
Okay.
You put real money in their hands.
Okay.
Because it feels so different. With this thing, with the phone and holding everything on it,
Yeah.
the easier it is to spend money, the more money you spend and you don't even think about
You
it.
don't think about it. Yeah.
And then what are you? You're in debt.
And then you're in trouble.
And when you're in debt, then you're owned by somebody else.
All right.
So how do you change that?
Education.
Education, and you practice what you preach. If you're preaching about gold and silver, when you go out, give people some gold and silver. Well, maybe not gold, because gold
I was about
is
to
more,
say,
but,
oh, this could get expensive.
but a little bit of silver, or it could save our lives,
Yeah, it could. It could.
right?
All right. What would you say to my beautiful audience out there at the moment, some of whom have said to me they don't know how to get started, number one. And if you could just say to them how you would get started if you had no idea and you were sitting here, and I've got people that watch this channel from all over the world.
Right.
What's the easiest way to get started, and why should they? And then my final point for you is, where to next?
Okay. So I want to go back to something that you said earlier, that what's the most important function of gold? It's to hold your purchasing power over time.
Yep.
Absolutely right. So that's the reason why you do it. Now, I did a study recently. It's not rocket science. I went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the U.S., and I took a food basket at the standard food basket in 1913, and the same exact food basket, according to the BLS, in 2024. I did this the beginning of September.
Okay.
And during that period of time, food itself, that basket had gone up 2,500% and change.
Wow.
The manipulated spot price, and we should definitely talk about that,
Yeah.
but the manipulated spot price had gone up over 2,900%.
Right.
So silver maintains your ability to purchase the same basic goods and services over time.
Okay.
Okay. Spot gold, manipulated market, we'll talk about that, had gone up over 12,000% during that same period of time. So while it did indeed protect your purchasing power, it also put you in a position for growth.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it went up 12,000%. So you can convert it from one form, gold,
Right.
into another form, which part of what makes Zhang Enterprises unique, and we are working on this on a more global basis, because
Sure.
there are some nuances in the U.S. that aren't in the rest of the world. So we're working on it.
Okay.
But it's built in layers, right? So that wherever we are in the trend cycle, as this whole thing evolves and personally, I see a hyperinflationary depression.
Oh, wow. That's a
and
double.
I'm- and
that's,
I'm- and I'm prepared-
That's a double whammy.
And I'm prepared to say that it's already begun because of the money supply velocity. I mean, there's a lot to it. But you want to be able to sustain your standard of living of all those things: food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. So you want to have a reasonable standard of living, and you can do that with a combination of gold or silver. But what are people going to recognize first before they really see that super rapid hyperinflation? They're going to recognize the digits in your phone or the bills, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have a certain layer of that, and it depends as your first line of defense.
Okay.
Then you go to the grocery store, you go wherever, and people really recognize that shopkeepers cannot replace the goods for how much they're charging you, right? Then silver is your next layer of defense.
Wow. Okay.
And you would use silver for things like
Every day.
gasoline, right? Buying strawberries, so you want different sizes, a variety of sizes. But you also need, and I call that barterable silver, and you also need barterable gold, fractional sizes, so smaller than an ounce, for things like property taxes. Because how do governments generate their income?
Taxes.
Voila! And I've done these studies forever. You need to be able to always pay your taxes, because let's say you have a house and it's paid off. You have no mortgage on it at all.
But you don't pay your taxes.
Guess what happens?
They repossess it.
Voila!
Because no one ever owns any. What is it? What do they say? You will own nothing, but you'll be happy. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not going to be happy, and I don't think most people would be. No. But it's a hyperinflationary world. Some people would be turning around and saying, yeah, people have been saying that forever. Everything's still okay.
Really? Well, I don't know why, and maybe it's because the U.S. dollar is the world reserve currency. Not really, but it has that title.
Yeah.
Okay. You can go on anybody, anywhere in the world, and I highly suggest you do this, because even though it may not be published in other countries, I guarantee you, and I can't give you lots of guarantees, but I guarantee you every single fiat currency looks very similar to the purchasing power of the U.S. dollar.
Okay.
So my very favorite website is called the FRED,
yes.
F-R-E-D, right?
Yep.
Which is the Federal Reserve Education Department.
That is open to everybody.
Open to everybody. And in the little search bar, put purchasing power in there. And what you're going to see, and I mean, it's really genius, because remember how I said that it's critically important for people to understand the fundamental value of any asset or instrument?
Yep.
On that left-hand scale, you'll see that it starts out at your
100.
dollar.
Yep.
It actually starts out at 1,000. You can move a couple zeros or periods so you can see the dollar.
Yep.
And if you look all the way down on the bottom, what does it have?
0.
Yep. So it is the Federal Reserve that is telling you that the dollar is worth 0. And what you will easily see is that consistent march to 0. And that's true for every single fiat currency, bar none, period, end of
But that's
discussion.
why they're going to bring in central bank, and I know we don't have a lot of time left, but I know that that's why they're thinking of bringing in central bank digital currency, because we can literally start again. Wipe the slate, start again, no more printing, it'll all go digital, no more printing per se.
It's not that easy.
Okay.
Okay. It's just not even that easy.
Okay.
Because in all of my studies to see, well, how are they going to justify creating this new money, right? And so the current fiat money that they create is created from debt.
Yeah.
Well, that debt is not payable.
No, that's true. Yeah.
So they have to hyperinflate the debt away.
Yes.
It goes back to the strategy, and I'm sharing this with everybody anyway.
Yep.
It goes back to the strategy. The goal and the plan of the governments is to first of all, never really repay the debt. It's constantly compounding debt.
Yeah, absolutely. Never
Right?
be repaid. Never.
Exactly. However, when they do roll that debt over, and then ultimately when they hyperinflate that debt away, and the value, the purchasing power value is at zero, what are they doing? They're repaying that debt with currency that has absolutely zero value.
All right. Tell us, if you are just having a look at this for the first time and having that aha moment, just getting started, tell them what they should do. I say, my view has always been diversification is your friend and gold is money. But
And so is silver.
and so is silver. I beg your pardon, so is silver.
So-
Precious metals is money.
So we
And
need
that's
to look at
important.
a whole bunch of different, because some people
What should
have
they do?
more wealth
Yep.
and less wealth.
Okay.
First of all, I want everybody to understand that gold and silver in any form is monetary at its base.
Okay.
So truthfully, regardless of your budget, maybe you have a sterling silver bracelet, right? Well, guess what? That's 92.5% pure. And it doesn't matter if it's broken or tarnished or bent. It
Go and
doesn't
get it
matter.
melted.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, there are like antique
Yeah,
dealers,
scrap metal.
and they'll get the scrap metal,
Yep,
right? If they
100%.
take it to a smelter, they're going to get below spot for it,
Yep.
below melt for. They're going to pay melt for it.
Yep.
Offer them spot.
Okay.
By weight, that is one way that you can accumulate it, and certainly something that I've done myself, right?
Right.
Another thing is to get with reputable dealers that actually carry physical gold and silver. Don't let them hold it, because quite honestly, just like you were talking about the banking earlier, if you don't hold it, you don't own it.
Guilty. I hold it, but not all of it. I have a self-managed super fund. It is so much easier for me to have allocated with a bullion dealer because of all the hassle of holding it and proving that you haven't touched it and all that sort of stuff. So I have actually said to people, if you're having it in, I think that's an IRA that you think that's what you
Right,
call it over
it's
there.
the same thing in the US.
And it's just, I say to people, if you're going to hold it in a self-managed super fund, that's what I've said. But you're like, no, if you don't own it, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. So you're...
Yeah, at Zhang Enterprises, everybody has to do what they're comfortable with.
Sure.
Right? Regardless of what anybody else says.
Sure.
I used to have a SEP IRA. I used to have one.
Yeah.
I don't have one anymore. I have a retirement plan, but I hold it.
Right.
Okay? Because even according to the Bank for International Settlements,
Yeah.
which is the central banker's central bank,
Yes.
you can go in and you can see what role for gold in currency reserves. It's a whole piece that they did. Read it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. And go to the conclusion. And they say, quite simply, gold, physical gold, is the only financial asset that runs no counterparty risk.
100%.
It's the only one.
There is nothing else.
There is nothing else.
And silver, no counterparty
Well,
risk.
silver, correct. That would be true. But the central bankers are going to concentrate on the primary currency metal,
Yep.
right? And gold and silver has never ever gone to zero.
No, never.
Why?
Never.
Why has it never gone to zero? Currencies can't say that. Stocks can't say that. Bonds can't say that.
Well, apart from the video, that just seems to keep going up and up and up and away. But listen, I find it fascinating. We're going to have to come back and do this again.
100%.
100%. Lynette's out in Australia. She's patted kangaroos. She's cuddled koalas. She's done all sorts of wonderful things. And as she said, she loves Australia. Don't overcomplicate things, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
It is simple as this. Gold and silver are money. They will protect your purchasing power. I want you to go and check
And your
out
freedom.
Lynette Zhang with Zhang Enterprises, because they also do sell gold and silver as well. And as Lynette said at the beginning, she is all about sound money and community. And I applaud you for that, because I think it is so important. Education is so very, very important.
And here's the other thing. I mean, I've been watching what's happened in Zimbabwe with their hyperinflation and all of that since 2006.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And they came back and now they have a gold-backed currency.
They do.
And we're hearing a lot about these asset-backed cryptos. This is backed, right? They're getting very loosey-goosey with that term,
Okay.
right? And the reason why I say that is because in Zimbabwe, even though their currency was backed by 40% gold, you couldn't convert it into it like we used to be able to do prior to 1933.
Right.
And so what did they end up being able to do? They did, the currency wasn't out, 5-6 weeks, the new gold?
Yeah.
And they did an
devalued.
overnight devaluation of 44%.
Yeah.
Right? So all that was pegged.
Pegged.
You must be able to convert it into the underlying asset.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't mean anything.
And they shouldn't be scared either, should they?
No.
Just go and buy a little bit. Just,
Yeah, whatever
again,
you can afford, and however much you can afford.
And the other thing, and people sometimes say to me, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, Kerry, it's not that easy. Well, you just have to tighten your belt for a little while. I often say delayed gratification. That's what this is going to be all about, because it will help you in the long term.
And silver is really more affordable. You need both. You 100% need
But
both.
if you don't have the ability to get both, get some silver to start with.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's all different sizes.
Yeah.
You can get 1/10 of an ounce, you can get an ounce, you can,
And if you drink coffee every day, you can afford silver.
Exactly. You sure can. Or if you have Aunt Bessie's silverware.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So or you have, your mom's old pin that's 14 karat gold.
So start to get educated, start to think, start to stop
and
understanding.
accumulate and come together with like-minded people.
Yeah.
Create that community locally around you, right? 100%. So that you can create your security in your food, water, and all those things that we talked about.
Great.
That is so important. Go to a farmer's market. Go to a community garden.
Yeah, much more. Yeah.
Meet the people that create your food. Give them a day's worth of labor, right? Go out and create that relationship.
Yeah.
Because one thing that, I saw, they were protesting in Zimbabwe and they had this big sign up.
Yeah.
And the sign said, "But what can I do? I'm just one person." Said 7 billion people.
Yeah.
There are 8.4 billion people in this world. If we can get 3% to convert their garbage fiat money, government money, into gold and silver in any form, doesn't matter, then I believe that we can have a seat at the table in the new system. We don't have to roll over and say, okay, they can do the CBDCs.
Yeah.
We don't have to do that.
Yeah.
We need to take our power back.
Take your power back. I agree with that.
Okay?
100%.
And if I'm sitting at that table, I'm demanding it's convertible. Because if it's not convertible, it doesn't mean anything. It can just be a big fat lie, just like you've been lied to your whole life. That's why people don't know it.
Yeah.
Because they've been lied to.
Yeah.
And we're asking them to have a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And that means they have to acknowledge that they have been lied to their entire lives. And who really wants to think that?
And you know what? And if you start to accumulate precious metals, and then one day you need some shelter, then you can cash in, so to speak, your precious metals and buy yourself some shelter, because that's what it's all about. Ladies and gentlemen, yep.
I'm sorry.
last one.
This is not nearly long enough.
I know. Unfortunately,
But that is part of the strategy.
Yeah.
Because I've done, and you guys can go in and look at this work, because I've done all of these studies. I have seriously been doing this since I was about 4 years old.
I remember.
Okay, on all different levels. But historically, 25 ounces of gold buys an entire city block, buildings and all. So if you can get a little bit, go in. I did a whole 25 ounces,
25 ounces of gold.
Yeah. Yeah.
can buy a whole city block.
Yeah,
Not
buildings
here-
and all, everything.
Not in Australia. Where are you talking about?
No, everywhere in the world as we go through this hyperinflationary depression.
Oh.
And I've done
you
videos.
mean in the future?
Correct. You want to accumulate it now. Go in, look at my work. I've done a whole video on it in a whole bunch of different countries.
Okay, we'll put that link below because I
Okay.
think people need to see that.
Absolutely. We'll get that link
Yeah,
to you.
definitely.
You know, and so imagine maybe you're struggling right now, but I got news for you. If you accumulate gold and silver, and I can't give you a lot of guarantees, but I'll give you this one. You can be much better off on the other side of this mess than you are today.
When's the other side?
Well, after they
In my
put,
lifetime?
well, probably, and probably I'm thinking it's going to be in my lifetime as
Okay.
well. And I'm 70, so I think I got,
Okay.
you know, but we've already started that hyperinflationary event. It's just not apparent yet, but I think
coming.
over the next year, it's going to start to become more apparent. I think we're going to be dealing with a lot more inflation.
Okay.
But that's all part of the strategy
Yeah.
because I've studied currency life cycles since 1987.
Yeah, you know it
Right?
backwards.
There are just these repeatable patterns that happen 100% of the time, and they've happened over 48,000 times.
Okay.
Right? So, I don't know. They want you to think this time is different. Oh, the technology, oh, the this. So it's never different.
And she's the pattern lady. She understands patterns, and as she says, hyperinflation is coming. We're not here to scare you, ladies and gentlemen.
No.
We're just here to wake you up, help you understand, and hopefully in time you'll look back and think, thank goodness I listened to that video and I actually took some action. Lynette
And
Zhang,
share.
thank you so much for joining me today
thank you
on
so
Making
much.
Money Matter. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and share this as wide as you can because as Lynette said, her passion is sound money and community. She wants to educate people. I'll put the links down below about how you can find Lynette. And if you like this video as well, I said subscribe, but also we're going to be doing the Gold Coast Gold event. That will be taking place in March here on the Gold Coast, March 13 and 14. And then our big event for the year is the Australian Gold Conference. That will be taking place October 13 to 15 back at the beautiful Crown Barangaroo. So if you understand the importance of sound money and understanding how to protect your purchasing power, you must be there. We look forward to seeing you again on Making Money Matter. My name's Kerry Stevens. Thanks for joining us.